Hello and welcome to this week's episode of FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Amanda Ramirez Gloria. Amanda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. The summer's definitely officially over. We're getting, pretty far into autumn as well. Halloween's about, we're only got a few days for Halloween, and like the Christmas stuff is already
Yes.
out in the shops.
Oh
It's pretty
yeah, I
crazy.
know. Yeah, I've also noticed, some people they also already have their decoration set up for Christmas too. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of funny.
I mean, I guess those families or those people, they probably don't celebrate Halloween as
That's
much, and they're probably
true.
not that bothered. If you're not,
Right.
then I can understand. They're like, if people are gonna do it next, like literally after next Tuesday, people are gonna do it anyway. So they're
Yeah,
thinking, I'll just get a jump start on it now.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, welcome to the podcast. Really appreciate you coming on today. So, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? So you're a graphic designer.
Yes. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of things to be honest. I am a volunteer graphic designer with Flow Lobby, which if you're not familiar, it is a social media, social networking type of app that's about to be released fairly soon, or at least the soft launch or the alpha version, specifically targeted to gamers, the gaming industry. All inclusive. That's kind of the champion, the message behind Full Lobby is we just want to be inclusive and provide a safe space for gamers as much as possible. So I'm a graphic designer there. Also, I am an indie game developer outside of that. I honestly I think that's pretty much the constant in my life at the moment. Is just making video games, and I recently also got into the newest indie game academy level 3 cohort for just kind of going through classes on game design and just kind of making a polished game at the end of it. So really fun stuff.
Okay, so let's, have a look at Flow Lobby first. So, it's a social, platform, a community for gamers. Are you saying that's, all inclusive? What's the inclusive, aspect of it? Like, how does that differ to, I mean, the first thing that came to mind was Discord. How does it differ to Discord, if there's any similarity at all?
So I guess this is just kind of like from my perspective and what I've come to know as a volunteer from Flow Lobby is pretty much what the main mission and the reason for Flow Lobby's origin is, like safety, online safety. Not, I want to say family friendly, but at the same time it's not going to be like something like Disney, like hardcore censorship or anything like that, but just basically a place where everybody can feel like they can be themselves, just be a human and just have that human aspect and that human connection. And I know that that's one of the things that's going to be, pretty center and central on Flow Lobby is just, having that sense of community and building each other up. So I would say that that's part of the main part of the inclusivity part of it is just no no zero tolerance policy pretty much for any kind of like hate speech or towards somebody, that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
and how are they, policing or handling that? Because obviously there may be, rules in place,
Hmm.
but people will
Right.
still do it. So the ultimate thing is,
Right.
how is it being handled to prevent that?
Right. So yeah, today there was actually a founders call with the founders of Flow Lobby, and it was really insightful. I myself learned a lot more as well in that call. But pretty much what they talked about in that call was that there is going to be a dedicated team, a committee that's going to be pretty much, I guess, moderating essentially. Be looking at that kind of stuff, just kind of like a hawk from what they made it sound like. So that's my understanding that that's kind of, the path that they're going to take with that. Just kind of, kind of like community management, community moderation, kind of like you see in Discord servers. But I think since this is one of like the pillars of Flow Lobby, I would assume and imagine that that's kind of going to be taken a lot more seriously.
Okay, and is there a way of like because with Flow Lobby, I'm assuming they'll have different communities, and obviously, like you could create a community, I could create a community, Bob could create a community, and each one of us may have a different, let's call it tolerance level to, let's say, hate speech or to certain comments. So, like something
Mm-hmm.
that you may not allow, I might be like, okay, that's fine, and then certain things I might be okay with that, like Bob would be like, no, I wouldn't be okay with. Bob is like, definitely no. So, like, is it a matter of they're monitoring and managing every community, or is there some way of varying it between communities? How does that
Mm-hmm.
work? Especially as it, grows as well, because obviously when there's a small number of communities, I understand that
Right.
you're a volunteer and there's only so much exposure you got, but just in terms of what you know about it, like how are they planning on doing that as that grows beyond obviously 10, 20 groups? I could, moderate myself, but if there's, ideally, I guess they want to get to a point where there's millions of groups,
Mm-hmm.
thousands of created every day. Like what's their plans for that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Honestly, that brings up something that I personally didn't really think of before. And honestly, I don't I'm not really the person to ask.
Mm,
But so I can't really say too much on that or expand too much on that, but I would definitely, follow the founders, especially Justin Williams. If you're not familiar, he's a senior recruiter at Activision Blizzard. He's one of the founders, and he talks a lot about it on LinkedIn. And yeah, I would definitely follow him because yeah,
oh yeah,
that's not something I'm exposed to.
that's fine. Then I am actually already,
Oh,
connected,
awesome!
with him. So yeah, I know
Yes,
him as, like you said, as a recruiter. But
right.
the fact that he's doing this is pretty cool. I mean, I'll definitely reach out to him and see if I can get him on another podcast. I think it'd be, interesting and cool thing to talk about. So, but yeah,
Yes, definitely.
continuing with Flow Lobby. So you're a volunteer there. How did that come about, and what motivated you to volunteer? Because we were volunteer. I'm guessing it's not paid, but you're still
Hmm.
allocating your time and
Yes.
your knowledge to it. So what motivated you to do that? And again, how did that come about?
So kind of like you, I've been following Justin for a good while, and I saw, him talking about this new thing that they were coming out with, which was Flow Lobby, and how it kind of, transitioned from a streaming service to a social media platform. And just the way that they were talking about it, I was very interested. And I was also already kind of like in another startup, kind of volunteering my time there as well at the same time. But I kept tabs on it, and one of my friends, she was actually my very first mentee in the gaming industry. Her name is Marie Duarte, and she actually got into Flow Lobby as a social media specialist. And I talked to her about it. I said, "Oh, that's really cool. It would be cool if I, maybe could participate in it as well because I really think that what they're doing is awesome." And yeah, she kind of convinced me to just kind of, just try out for it. Initially, I applied to be a Discord manager because I'm pretty savvy in that realm, but I also, being an indie developer, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. So I I kind of fell into the graphic design part because Justin reached out to me once I expressed interest, and yeah, that was kind of where I guess they needed more of the help, and I was more than happy to help any way that I could, just kind of with the vision that they have and the goals that they have and the mission that they're going for. Um, so yeah, that's kind of just how I ended up here, and I do kind of just yeah have set aside time for specific tasks, and it's kind of all managed really well. We have our own set task to do, and I just yeah, it's a lot of self sufficiency too. I can't say that if I didn't have the sort of self maintenance that I have, that I would be successful in this role. But yeah, it's a lot of creativity, kind of like a creative outlet that I have in my volunteer position at Flow Lobby. So I definitely have been able to hone a lot of my graphic skills and sort of design skills there that way. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's some good advice just for people that are listening is get gain involved in startups, projects, volunteering, especially earlier on in your career when let's say if you don't have a family, or if you do have a family, still early on, like as you get older it becomes harder, but when you're younger definitely volunteer, or get involved in startups. Sometimes they will pay as well, especially if they're funded, and you can learn a lot, and like you said, you end up being a jack of all trades. And
Mhm.
it's not even one of those situations where you become a jack of all trades but a master of none. You end up, I'd say, becoming a jack of all trades and mastering a fair few in ways that you wouldn't in a conventional job. Yes, there's certain depth that you'll get with an established team and established product and company, but there's still a level of, I'd say, dynamic thinking that you just can't get outside of a startup, even if you are just
Mhm.
volunteering. So Flow Lobby, are there a lot of volunteers? Is a lot of the work done by volunteers, or is it just a few to help? Like how does that work into terms of like volunteers versus people that are actually working there? And is it like, do they have funding?
As far as I know, like I said, I'm more on the graphics side.
Hmm.
Yeah, as far as I know, we're purely, on volunteer basis. So yeah, I think that's where we're at right now.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're a indie game developer. Have you released any games, or are you working on any games currently?
Yeah, so I do have a couple of games that I've published on itch.io. So they're all pretty much a result of, game jams, so they're not, fully fleshed out or anything like that. But it has, definitely put me into that game dev perspective where, you collaborate with people, especially, across the globe, different time zones. So that has been really awesome experience to kind of just, dive right into game dev. But to answer your question, yes, I have done a couple of games and they are on my itch page.
Okay, so first, which game jams did you participate in? And can you, explain what game jams are for anyone that's listening that doesn't understand the concept of it? And like,
Yeah.
would you recommend it? Like, what have you got out of it? It's one of those things that I feel like unless you do it, you don't really appreciate. Again, it doesn't have to be a game jam. It's essentially, particularly it could be just like a coding jam. You get regular coding
Hmm.
jams as well. But like, well, what have you got out of it that you feel like you wouldn't have if you hadn't have done it?
Yeah, for sure. So, the very first game jam that I participated in was one that was put on by the X Place, and what the X Place is it's how I see it. It's pretty much a LinkedIn, but just for the gaming industry. They have like a job board. You can have you have your own profile. You can set up your own portfolio, stuff like that. So literally LinkedIn, but gaming industry. So they hosted their, I think, yeah, it was their summer game jam. That was my very first game jam. It was recommended to me by my producer mentor. She was with Studio Tagwiz, and now she's at Ubisoft. But yeah, I pretty much got started there, and how that worked, if you're not familiar with game jams, is you're pretty much given a set amount of time. You have the option to go in solo, do solo dev work, or find a team. And I went in with my two close friends who I've known since high school. And we just kind of gave it a shot since it was something that we were interested in doing, and we're just huge gamers. So we just dove right into it, and right away, with this particular game jam, thankfully we were set up with a team mentor, and then there were also specialization mentors where I had my mentor who was I spoke with Dazia. She's the one that recommended me this game jam, and then Julio was Emily's mentor, which she was the programmer on the game, and he's works at Game Loft, I believe. And Lizzie, honestly, she was just kind of a powerhouse on her own. So she'd gone to school for art. So she kind of already knew what she was doing. So she is amazing. The game that I'm talking about is Hopscorch. But yeah, that was the product of that game jam. And honestly, I don't want to set the bar too high because not all game jams are like this. But this was, the best introductory game jam that I probably could have gotten into because, there was so many awesome people there. They had, little panels of professionals, who are tenured in the gaming industry, kind of talk about their experiences in game dev and just kind of giving us pointers on how to make a good game. And um yeah, so that was pretty much that experience with that game jam. But pretty much we had a week time frame. We just planned it all out. I set up, sprints and stuff, and we had our daily dev meetings. And yeah, at the end of it, we had a pretty decent game, for a week, for just putting the work in for a week, nonstop. It's pretty good, and that's that's the end goal. Just to have fun too, especially.
Oh yeah, it's definitely hectic, these coding jams.
Yes.
Can
Yeah.
be. So you mentioned itch.io. When a lot of people think about, an indie, developer, producing a game, putting it out there, they think of Google Play Store, Apple App Store. Like, how does itch.io, compare to them, for the audience? Plus, also, what motivated you to go the itch.io route compared to one of those, app stores?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's for me at least, it just made more sense with Itch because they do have a very vast, huge page dedicated just to jams, which is primarily where the product of my games have come from. Um So to me, it made sense to go there because that's where they're pretty much all sourced, or at least where I get them from. And then also, it's just a really, I feel like, really indie friendly community. Because you do have the option also, to make money on there, and you don't have to deal with any sort of like fees or anything like that. At least from what I've heard, I don't know how true this is, but I feel like I've heard that to publish like on the App Store with Apple, you have to pay like $100 up front or something like that. And if you're indie, and especially if you're just starting out like me, that's not just a drop in the bucket that could pay off one or even two bills. So I think in that regard, Itch is definitely a lot more indie friendly, and there are even some from what I've seen, like mainstream games even on Itch. It's not just 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 people making their games out of their basements or whatever. I mean, not to say that indie studios don't do that, but yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I remember when I first came across Itchy years ago, it was very much, like you're saying, those sort of games that you wouldn't see anywhere else.
Hmm.
Whereas in recent years, I've looked at it and I'm like, I recognize that game. Like, yeah, you're not
Hmm.
getting obviously Call of Duty on it, especially is
Right.
gravitated towards more indie, smaller, especially 2D style games. Almost like how, do you remember miniclip.com, like in the Flash
Yes.
era? Yeah.
Wow, I
So
haven't
like,
heard that in so long. Yes, I do.
yes, yeah, so like platforms like Miniclip, I'm trying to think of what else, but like that was, I'll say, the main one. Yeah, I mean that's probably, I guess, the closest similarity. You've been online, you can upload your games. They have a relatively easy process from what I've seen of uploading a game. Whereas obviously with
Hmm.
iOS, especially, it's very obviously one you need Apple devices, to test to develop. The other thing is you need to pay. The
Hmm.
actually, is there a fee for each IO or not?
No, there's not actually. If you just want to publish, you can just,
Mhm.
yeah, you just publish.
No for yeah, because obviously with Apple, I think it's currently sitting at about what $99 US to
Yeah.
create a developer account. That's yearly as well, and then that
Wow.
allows you to publish. But then even when you publish, because I publish apps before on the Apple and Google Play Store, you know. Taking a bit of time for them to get around to reviewing it because they have to review first. Once they've reviewed it, that's if they accept it, and then they might give you some points of, okay, we didn't accept it for these reasons. Sometimes those reasons are so useless. Like they'll give you a reason what they didn't accept it. And you're like, that doesn't mean anything to me. I need something a bit more specific. Sometimes it can be so silly as a particular icon for like
Mm-hmm.
the app icon. The name was not in the format they wanted it, or
Wow.
like they're very very strict. Whereas Apple is
Right.
definitely a lot. I'm not Apple, sorry. Google is definitely a lot looser. Even with them, you do have to pay based a one-time fee only,
Mm-hmm.
and it does come available effectively immediately. I think it probably takes a few hours to propagate through the App Store, but again, it's still a lot a bit more complicated in terms of the process of making a game and getting it all ready, publish ready compared to a platform like Itch. So, I've definitely seen Itch become very popular with developers over the years, even if it's a matter of like getting it on Itch first, then maybe looking at Steam, then maybe looking at
Mm-hmm.
Google and Apple. I've seen that happen as well, where they'll put it on Itch or maybe some other platform, and then they'll go after the big ones a little later on.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's kind of where I'm, taking it to. Like, of course, I would love to to publish to a broader audience, on the App Store, Google Play, Steam, even. But yeah, I think itch, especially if you're starting out, that is definitely, in my opinion, the way to go because it's just, I feel like, it's just super newbie indie dev friendly, and the process is just so easy, as well. Like if you want to get paid or do like a payout as well, it's, yeah, they make it super simple. So yeah, definitely recommend itch.
Fair enough. So, yeah, like, what do you do as your main, job in terms of obviously, getting paid? Is it just freelance work? Is it indie, or is it something else? Because Flow Lobby is, volunteering.
Hmm. So right now I'm actually, I my day job is I'm an operations supervisor at a BPO call center. So I've been there for about 4 years. Right now, I'm currently actually taking like a break or a leave of absence at the moment, which is allowing me, to kind of do all this stuff, as kind of like a creative outlet. But I've been there for a few years, got a lot of experience that has helped me in the gaming industry. A huge tech background there. I worked for, I want to say, 3 years, 2 3 years. um I can't say who because I signed an NDA, but the one of the top tech companies globally. So I learned a lot there. Super great time, super awesome people. And I just, there I pretty much, managed my own team, uh, doing technical support calls, and yeah, just helping people with their devices and stuff. And that was pretty cool. So that just kind of set me up on the path to where I am now as well.
Okay. And in terms of like your development experience, like in the games that you're making, what sort of tools and languages, frameworks do you use for it? Because the gaming industry is very varied, in terms of the software and tools available.
Hmm. So what I've personally dabbled with, because usually I just primarily do like the producer stuff or game design stuff, but what I have been looking into more, especially these days, is Godot. Um, so that I feel like is also, really beginner friendly as well. There's a whole playlist that I've been going through that kind of helps you get started. Just kind of learning the basics and stuff like that. Prior to that, I was using, or more, a little more familiar with Unity. Um, but that didn't last very long. just I guess due to recent events. But yeah, it that's kind of more. I do have a little bit of experience with scripting in C# because of Unity, but now I'm primarily focused on with using GD script and all nodes and all that stuff in Godot or Godot. I'm not too sure how to pronounce that just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I do say Gold Up, and it's one of those ones where it's not like Unreal or Unity where it's pretty widely accepted as one particular way of saying it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, so how do you find Godot? Because it's not something that I've particularly used. I've had a quick look at it, but it seems to be one that a lot of especially indies like yourself do really love. People that I come across online that use it, they seem to have a lot of good things to say about it. And how does it compare to like Unity? Is it just as capable? And why did you specifically switch from using Unity and you went to the Godot route?
So I think honestly, at least from what I've seen, if you are wanting to do more 3D stuff, I feel like Unity, probably might be the better way to go. But what I primarily focus on is, more 2D game development, stuff like that, like platformers and roguelikes. So I was actually doing my research on this, even before I even touched the game engine on what would be the best game engine. So specifically, Godot came up as the champion for stuff like using sprites and just kind of 2D game mechanics, and I feel like that is probably what sets them both apart. But also, um, as far as from what I remember, I don't think there's a zero code option in Unity. I can't recall at the moment. But
Yeah, I think it is heavily, scripting. You will have
mhm.
to tap into scripting at some point,
Yeah.
pretty early on, I'd say.
Yeah, so that I feel like that's another huge thing with Godot as well. Like they're I can't remember the exact name or the what it's exactly called, but there is an option, if you want to make, a game, just absolutely zero code, you can. Obviously it might not, produce the greatest results, but you can do it. It's an option.
It
And
never produces the best of the best. I mean, there's always, I find every year or two there's some new software, some new tool that's come out, and it's making waves because that it's no code. It's just
right.
pure WYSIWYG, drag and drop, and you can make what they promise you. They can make all these amazing games, and then sometimes if you look at all like example games they showcase, they're so similar to each other,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, I mean, okay, I guess you can make that one genre and one type of looking game and style very easily, and then when you try and make something totally different, it's become really difficult. So yeah,
Yeah.
right now they're really. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of them can be good, but at some level you're gonna need to tap into a bit of code. And
Mhm.
it's one of those things. Even if you could do it all without code, sometimes having a bit of code where you can programmatically like position items like on a menu, make stuff like already like this stuff that you can do with maths within the code. You can create your own custom algorithms that you just can't do with WYSIWYG or not very easily. So like there's definitely a
Yeah.
point where you're actually hindering yourself, even if you can provide the full development experience in drag and drop, it's not going to be the most efficient and
Yeah.
quickest.
That's very true. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, like you are pretty much, kind of hindering yourself and setting yourself back if you're just restricting yourself, or you're just, you're mostly comfortable with no code. Cuz it's like this guy that I watch on YouTube. His name is Emerald. He's the reason, that I also kind of just am so passionate about Godot and itch.io in particular. But yeah, it's just kind of like he said it, like you're just eventually going to hit a wall. I feel like it's inevitable, especially if
It
you
is,
want to
yes.
make yeah, especially if you want to make a game to the extent that, if you're envisioning something crazy or something new, something different, I feel like you have to at some point use, scripts and code, cuz otherwise it's like you said, you're just going to have some sort of cookie cutter game that you've seen a million times, and there's a reason for that, because because it's easy. It's the easy way.
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
yeah.
Plus, it's like if you said, I'm never going to use sprites, you're not going to use textures, and all you're going to use is shapes. Like, you're going to get to a point where, okay, maybe you could make enough shapes and position them in such a way
Mhm.
that they look good and they look like what you could do with texture, but it's at a point of why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like shapes have their own place and they're very useful in game development, either if that's for testing to to build out your MVP very quickly, or even if it is a simple like shape game, you will probably get to a point where having textures will be efficient on some level. And also you look at engines like Unreal Engine, something so I mean, like the leading industry standard engine that anyone can go and use. If you make something in that and you generally don't do much scripting and you don't do much outside of what's provided in there, you end up getting a very generic Unreal looking game.
Mhm.
Like it's when you want the game to not feel like it's made in Unreal, it takes it takes a fair bit of work. I mean, people do it, but it's not so easy because yeah, you can get a game that looks good, it looks 3D, it's got physics, it's got all these you know core game foundations, but it's just made in Unreal. Like you can just see it. Like I see stuff projects all the time online, and yeah, it looks graphically good, and yes, it looks grand for one or two developers, but I'm like, I can just tell that's made in Unreal,
Mhm.
and not in a good way as well. I'm just like, it's very cookie, like you said, cookie cutter. It is just,
Mhm.
it is a standard Unreal. Like that model is built into Unreal, or you've modified it a little bit, and like the way it runs and the way like the shooting mechanic, like it's just all Unreal. Like at
Yeah.
this point, I'm playing like a expansion pack to Unreal Tournament almost.
Yeah, yeah, that's another great point. Like, um, I there are times where I'll, like you said, I'll just look at a game and it's just like, okay, yeah, that looks like definitely unreal, and that's I didn't really see it that way. Like, it, not to say that it's always like an insult, but it kind of also can signal to you as well, like how much originality was put into it, how much
Mm.
passion, how much work was put into it by the dev team, or did they just kind of just get like generic assets from like the asset store or something and just kind of throw something together real quick. So that's also like another, I feel like another insightful point that you brought up, because it's, to me at least, there's different levels of passion and dedication to developing a game, but I think for the most part, thankfully, from what I've seen in the game dev community, these specific groups and types of people are so passionate and so invested in their work that it just, to me, it doesn't make sense to take the easy way to do things. Like, if especially in the case like we were talking about, if you want to go the no script route, like, more power to you. If that's, what works for you, then that's what works for you. But at the same time, I feel like you're doing yourself more harm than good, because at the end of the day, scripting and coding is a tool to help you get what you want quicker. That's how I see it, at least. So to me, that's how I kind of, rationed with myself that it's definitely worth, learning how to script and learning the native code of specific game engines.
I 100%. Like you said, it is a tool to help assist you. And then there's also times when I know people that are coders first can go the opposite route where they'll do more in code than they probably should do, especially when you have tool. Well,
Yes.
like again, it goes both ways. And I know
Mhm.
I've been guilty in the coding side of it because I come from a coding background. If I have an option to do it in code, I will choose that option more than the interactive option. I think there's two main reasons.
Mhm.
One, I feel comfortable more coding it because I'm not as good of a designer, as I am a coder. But the other thing is, I kind of feel like because I'm doing more work, I'm putting more work into it. That's kind of better. Do you know what I mean? I'm having to because I'm putting more
Yeah.
effort into it because it's not suited for coding.
Right.
Necessarily, it might be better to use a tool and then maybe export something and then import it in via code instead of trying to do
Mhm.
it, or like animation, for example, like you might use an animating tool that might produce some sort of file, animation file, and then you might hook it in via code instead of getting every individual sprite frame and creating your own animation system. Yes, there's times when that's valid, but when you're a small indie developer doing a small project, it's not that valid, and it can be almost like, okay, I'm putting more work into it. I'm kind of, it almost makes you feel better. I think there's an element of that as well.
Mhm. Yeah. No, yeah. And that's funny that you bring that up because I feel like that was kind of like our initial experience as well, with our first game that we made. It was completely made from scratch. No game engine, just our programmer just pure coding in JavaScript, and our sprite animator just made everything from scratch. We didn't really know, or we thought it would have been harder, to learn a game engine than to just do it from scratch. But now it's just like, okay, well, now we know. Like now we know we can, have, the best of both worlds, and that's kind of where we're going with it now because yeah, we were able to, get what we got in a week, which is pretty cool. Doing it from scratch, but at the same time, it's like, there was probably a lot of stress that could have been saved if we, invested the time into learning a game engine and just, trying to work our butts off.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like if you're building a house, it's a lot easier to learn how to lay bricks and get bricks that are pre-made than try to, make the bricks yourself,
Yeah.
whilst, building the house. And, nobody really makes the bricks themselves whilst they're trying to build the house on site. Like you go and buy the bricks, you go and buy the cement, you go and buy the steel beams, the wood, like whatever it is. And that's the same thing with a video game as well. Obviously, it depends on the game, depends on the scale, depends on the talent pool available as well. But yeah, like using tools that are already available, that are specialized, that are tried and tested within that field and industry definitely helps.
Definitely.
Okay, so on your LinkedIn, it said you've got a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Sciences, a major, and a minor in chemistry. It's like that sounds like to me nothing like the gaming industry, but
Yeah.
you seem to be like all in on the gaming industry. It's like
Yeah.
you like. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, like how and why that happened, and like why you didn't go down the science route?
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess just, for further background, taking it way back, I'm a Latina. I was born and raised in South Texas, which is, predominantly Hispanic community. And at least in, where I come from and where I'm raised, and talking to other people in the industry who are also Latino, Latina, this seems to be a common theme with parents, just really, pushing, obviously, like any parent would, just pushing for their kids to be successful. But what that mainly looked like was, just, four or five options, like, um, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a
Lawyer,
lawyer.
accountant,
Yes, yes,
engineer.
an engineer. Exactly. So, it was kind of that thing, since the beginning, since I was little, just like, oh, you're so smart, you can do whatever you want, but you should be a doctor. It's just like, okay. I didn't know any better. Like, what am I gonna do? So yeah, so I graduated high school. I graduated valedictorian. I was like, okay, like I'm pretty smart. I kind of want to help the world. So let's go with doctor. So yeah, I went to school. Went to Texas A&M University, Kingsville. I was pre-med student, and my concentration was actually in pharmacy, so I was a pre-pharmacy student. So that's where the chemistry comes into play. I love I to this day I still absolutely love science. It's still kind of like second nature to me. When I read about stuff, read articles about medicine, or and the environment, and chemistry, stuff like that. I still have that passion for science and stuff. But I want to say about my junior year in college, um, I was really thinking like, can I be a pharmacist? Like, picturing myself behind a counter, day in, day out, you know, in a, I guess, like a retail setting, which it's not for me. I know hate is a strong word, but I I hate retail. And after really thinking about it, I was like, this is not me. Like, yeah, I'm making, my family proud, and that makes me happy, but it doesn't truly make me happy. Like, I don't think this is who I am. So I was already a junior. I was really considering switching my major to computer science, because I felt that was kind of more, that aligned more with who I was. Because I've been a techie kind of kid since I was little. I've been on YouTube uploading YouTube videos since I was like 11, even though that's against their TOS. But I've known that
I mean, if they were strict with that, there's probably a lot of people that should get, banned.
Yeah,
There's plenty of kids on there
that is very true.
that are doing very well, and they're not banning them.
That is very true. So you got a point there. But yeah, that was just, I knew I was becoming more familiar with who I was. So from there, I just, that's kind of where it sparked that sense of self, and self-identifying, like who I was and what I wanted to do. And then just kind of further down the line, that's kind of what led me into the whole tech support role. And the constant, since all of this has always been gaming. I've been there since, watching YouTube videos even before like gaming on YouTube was a thing. So seeing it happen was like freaking wild. Can we cuss on here? Not that I would want to, but
Everything goes.
okay, all right, because it'll slip out sometimes. I do try to censor myself, but um but yeah, so since the beginning, like even before, like PewDiePie, Markiplier, all that stuff, just I've it's been a huge part of me. um and then just kind of recently, I knew tech was the route to go, more or less. And then last year, is when I want to say I started becoming more active on LinkedIn. So I joined this event. It was specifically for, it was like a fireside chat with Latinas in tech. There were Latinas who worked with Google, who worked with LinkedIn, and other huge tech companies that I can't remember the name of at the moment. But um, one of them, her name was Diana. She's a project or a program manager at Google, and she was telling her story, and she said, that she also did like Twitch streaming on the side, and I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. Like, you're in tech, but you're also in gaming, like, sort of. So, I reached out to her if she could be my mentor, just because I kind of related to her and resonated with her on that level. And yeah, I feel like ever since then, stuff just kind of exponentially started progressing to where I am now. She introduced me to Latinx in gaming, which is a community with primarily Latina um, background people of color who are either in the gaming industry one way or another, like whether it's like streaming or they actually, work with gaming studios, or, they're just super passionate about gaming. So that's kind of when I had that realization. I was like, oh my God, like these people are like me, their stories are similar to mine. They have the same struggles as me. They know what it's like growing up Latina and growing up in a Hispanic household, and having all these sorts of expectations put on you. But at the end of the day, like, your heart is in gaming, your soul is in gaming. So I've really started to look, deeper into that, um and then just kind of keep that in the back of my mind. And then um there was this event with Latinas in Tech, which is another organization. They have like a annual recruiting event, um, or yeah, it's a summit, and they have people from big tech companies just kind of go there, and just your normal recruiting event. Um, so where things kind of take a turn is I met up with the recruiter who came from EA. And it was interesting because, even before this event, I noticed somebody on my LinkedIn, or specifically a recruiter on LinkedIn from EA, kept looking at my profile. I'm just like, what? Like, how do they what gave them the impression, like, how do they know that I'm looking at gaming, or like, considering I just thought it was funny. So I set up a schedule, a one-to-one meeting with this recruiter from EA. And wow, like, that was definitely a pivotal moment, because I told her everything, that I had experience in, that I did a lot of project management and I managed my own teams, and super highly um, motivated in cross-functional settings, and having a little bit of startup experience, just giving her the whole spiel about my background. And she just pretty much said, I know this, you don't really think of this way, but you would be great for a producer role. I'm just like, what? A producer? Like, at that time, I was like, producer, like thinking like, like people like, Steven Spielberg and, you know, people like that. I didn't really, or music producers. I didn't really think of it in a gaming capacity. But when she shared that with me, and just kind of telling me, and telling me about postings, and I was looking at what these job postings entailed that were, specific for producers. I That's when it clicked as well. I was like, okay, like, this is what I do in my day job. This is what producers do in the gaming industry. I'm just like, that's freaking amazing. So I just had to learn more. I kind of started purging my LinkedIn of everything that was just super general to tech, and just started following a bunch of people within the gaming industry. Um, and I was so shocked. I still am kind of shocked to this day at how many people are on LinkedIn that are in the gaming industry. Um, but
It's an insane number. Like the amount that I'm
yeah.
always, coming across, like the amount of people that I've just discovered as a result of LinkedIn. Like it's one of those things that when you start using LinkedIn with what I'd say whatever industry you're in, but especially gaming, you just find people on there. I'm sure you've come across
Mhm.
people like Amir Satvat.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, Justin Williams. He has a
Mhm.
community. What's it? I think Ada something.
Yes. Aida
Yeah,
Figueroa.
yeah,
Yes.
that's the one, like that one as well, and there's like a bunch of other people that I can't remember off by heart, and these are like they're pretty major voices,
Mhm.
online. But outside of YouTube, I mean, outside of LinkedIn, especially like Amir Satva, like he literally has no presence virtually outside of LinkedIn. I've spoken to him directly, and I've said to him like, do you do other stuff, in a major way? He's like, no. I was like, do you have an interest? Like in like if he started a YouTube channel and he just posted on LinkedIn that I'm starting a YouTube channel, he would start getting a fair few subscribers pretty quickly, and his
Yes.
content is also in depth and good. But he's just like, I'm just hammering down on LinkedIn. He's like, that's what I have time for, and that's what I'm doing. Yeah, there's like the people out there like that are treating LinkedIn obviously outside of their job. Like Amir, I think works at Tencent now. He was at Amazon
Yes.
before, Amazon Games. He like again, I'm mentioning him, but like it's all of them. They're treating LinkedIn as the way YouTubers are treating YouTube, or TikTokers are treating TikTok, and they're getting amazing followings. And the
Yep.
other beauty of it, of LinkedIn, is because there's kind of a fear of you got to be professional, you don't get the BS in the comments for the most part.
Yeah. For the
I
most
mean,
part.
for the most, I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
I'll see the odd comment and I'm like, I know what you're basically trying to say, but you obviously
Right.
you don't have the guts to say it on LinkedIn, because
Right.
this is where employers are looking. But again, yeah, you're not getting some random kid, being racist, or
Mhm.
just saying your nose looks big, stuff like
Right.
that. Like even the negative responses are like 5 lines long, and there's some kind of explanation there. So yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely an element of that people that don't want that bullshit on
Mhm.
Twitter, or especially Twitter, TikTok,
Oh yeah.
Instagram. I find Instagram's relatively positive compared to stuff like Twitter, to be fair.
Yeah,
But yeah,
compared to Twitter, yes.
yeah,
Compared to
uh,
Twitter, yes.
and compared to YouTube, but yeah, the communities that are opening up on LinkedIn is pretty insane. Like the people and the voices that they're able to create. So again, that's another piece of advice for anyone that's listening: is if you want to put some content out there, especially if it's more on the professional side, consider LinkedIn. Like the people that are just doing LinkedIn, as far as I'm aware, there's no monetization right now for posts and content. So it's really more if you've already got a job and you're growing your following or your community, and you want to post some professional content. I think that's really what it's for. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, does LinkedIn have some sort of monetization method?
I don't believe, like any sort of proprietary monetization is there,
Yes,
but I know that there are some voices on LinkedIn that have their own sort of influencer monetization program going on, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah, but it's not like how YouTube, you can put a video on, there's ads, and obviously if you get 1 million views, that's
Yeah.
gonna equate to a fair bit of money.
Mhm.
There's a direct, link with you getting views and getting money. Obviously outside of that, the sponsorships and partnerships, which can be even more money. But like, I don't think anything like that. So like, you could get 1 million views on a post. I mean, that would be a lot on LinkedIn, to be fair, but you could do, and it
Yeah.
might not really directly mean anything outside of making you happy, because I'm sure you make anyone happy. A
Yeah.
million views on a LinkedIn post.
Yeah, no, yeah, they don't really have anything yet. I have a feeling though, like I don't know, just seeing the direction that things are going on LinkedIn, I can't shake this feeling that I think they're eventually going to do something like that though.
One
I
hundred
don't know.
percent. I mean,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. It's a strange thing of what LinkedIn have become. Again, I've gone heavy on LinkedIn since starting this podcast, because this is the main way I reach out to people for connecting with people to get onto the podcast. But yeah, I've definitely seen a difference from where it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in terms of the way people are treating it. And I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this yourself, that yes, let's say 95% of people that are posting on LinkedIn are posting in a professional manner, or posting about, I don't know, some statistic or their opinion on some industry trend, like Activision Blizzard being bought by Microsoft. But then you're getting that odd person, the way they would have used Facebook, using LinkedIn, like they're posting like them randomly on holiday,
Mm-hmm.
Like the picture still say a bit better quality, maybe a bit more censored, but like the kind of like the other social media aspect of it where posting stuff that doesn't really matter or in a way is kind
Yes,
of
I
coming
totally get what you're
onto
saying.
is coming onto LinkedIn, and I'm wondering if that'll actually break in, or you'll just be a few people that have tried it and it's clearly not working. Like they haven't got their head out of the Facebook and Twitter, days of, let's say, when they were a bit younger, and they brought the
Mm-hmm.
same mentality over to LinkedIn and not realized there's
Yeah.
a difference.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, and I feel like there is a good amount of people that like seeing that stuff on LinkedIn, and I see a lot of praise as well in the comments, like, thank you for being so real, or like, thank you for,
Mm,
just being a person and not being so, corporate-y, or, using your corporate voice or whatever. So yeah, I think there's definitely a market for that. I've seen it, and I follow those people too. Like, that they, if they post primarily memes, I follow it because it's, it's a break from the seriousness.
it
But
is true
yeah.
though. Yeah, I think it's one of those ones. I think there'll be always a market within it. I don't think it'll become, because again, LinkedIn is that serious platform. I can't see
Right,
LinkedIn
exactly.
becoming the Twitter or the Facebook, and not having real name. Like everyone has their real name.
Mhm.
Virtually everyone has their real, like, has a picture, and like it's their real picture. I don't think it's gonna become the Twitter or the Facebook where it's so anonymous, and ultimately people will go to those platforms if that's what they want to go for. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the change, like people coming onto it, and I feel like we'll might even see more native video tools and features within LinkedIn, because right now a
Yes.
lot of it is just like linking or embedding like a video. But I think would definitely see, especially with live events, for like
Mhm.
recruiter events,
Yep.
advice on how to get it, a job, like, all this sort of stuff that's still very professional. And I think around that, people build, like you said, will build communities on here as they already doing. They will have a way of monetizing. I think even if it's not ads, it might be subscriptions. You can view my content for free. Then for £5 a month, you can get insider tips, access into the gaming industry. I've worked at, let's say, 10 major gaming studios, and I'm 55 now. I've got a lot of insight. I think that's
Mhm.
something that could be a major next step for LinkedIn compared to YouTube, because people coming to LinkedIn are already in that professional mindset. So they see
Right.
they see someone that's been at Valve, EA, I don't know, like Microsoft, like a bunch of studios working on a bunch of projects.
Mhm.
They're like, I want to hear from this guy. And they're doing some sort of masterclass that's £5 a month, and they're giving me insider tips and insider like posts that I can't get anywhere else. And because it's LinkedIn, I know it's gonna not necessarily be vetted, but I trust it a bit more.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and that just reminded me, like, there is kind of already a feature like that where you know, you can offer certain services, and you can select, like, oh, I'll offer, consulting or marketing or whatever, like these kinds of services. So yeah, I can definitely see that, if they want to kind of go that route and be kind of like a professional Fiverr, or have that sort of element to LinkedIn, I can definitely see that for sure.
Oh yeah. So, being within the gaming industry, being around, like the art side of things, what do you think of AI tools? Like AI of the last 6 to 12 months, I think in terms of the public, in terms of, being in the public's eye, has blown up immensely, especially tools like ChatGPT and Bard. Like, what's your opinion on it? And have you used those tools much?
So yeah, I mean, I've used all of them. On my headline in LinkedIn, one of the points to say, AI enthusiast. I have not, since I've gotten more serious about game development, I haven't ventured into AI as much. But I mean, it's definitely a tool, I think. I feel like it can definitely, at least the way that I use it definitely helps in the creative process. Like, say, if I'm trying to convey something like to, the sprite artist or the sprite animator, and, say we have a palette already picked out for the game, I'll use like Midjourney or Bard is the one that I'm more familiar with, and I'll give them, like the hex codes of the color palette and say, hey, I want to show, the artist, what kind of vision I have for this. It's a retro wave sort of, post-apocalyptic type of game that we want to make, and it's pixelated, it's a platformer, and it's the setting is here in, the aftermath of, like, I don't know, a toxic spill or something, a waste spill. Generate this for me. So, it'll generate, with the prompt that you gave it. And then I'll just tell the artist, like, hey, this is kind of what I was trying to tell you that we should go for. Can you make this happen? They're like, yeah, like I can do that, and we can put our own spin on it. So I think using it in that way, is because there's, that whole debate about, is it ethical, is it moral, and, stealing jobs or whatever. Like, I can definitely see that side of that to a degree, but um in my opinion, I feel like it's good to be used as a tool, but I also see the other side of it too, because there are solo developers, and um as much as you can be a jack of all trades, like I said, that's a lot of work. I mean, it
It
can
takes
be
a lot,
done.
and it takes a lot of time. It's like
Yes.
I don't know if you've heard of the game Songbringer, the indie
I
game.
have not.
Okay,
No.
so he's working on Wraithbinder as well, like a side sequel. It's like amazing game. He Songbringer a lot of the development, like he was doing daily live streams, so it's on YouTube by Nathaniel Weiss, and I had him on the podcast a couple of times, and he did everything, like the coding, the art, the audio, every single thing, and to the point of getting it published. He does have a publisher now, and he did for the first one as well. But like he did it all himself. Just like didn't he? I think he had either a Kickstarter or a Indiegogo page, made a bit of money on that, and that just helped him basically live. But he spent like 2 3 years constantly just working on this game. And I remember him saying to me on the podcast that in total the game had made like 100,000 or something dollars. And on the surface of it, it sounded like a good amount of money. But when he broke it down in terms of the hours that he had put in, he said he was working for less than minimum wage. Like it's
Oh my
like
gosh.
yeah, and the game
Yeah.
looks amazing. It's really like it's really good. It's a really good game. As I say, it's really well made. It's not even one of those situations where you're like, okay, he's put it together really quickly, and he hasn't put effort in it. He's put effort. He's very talented. He spent a lot, like I say, he spent years on it, and he had a publisher as well. So like there was still a bit of weight behind it as well. And even then, being on iOS, Steam, Google, PlayStation, I think on Xbox Switch as well. And now it's yeah. Again, if you're making that per year or per 6 months, it'll be different. But it's crazy the amount of work that's required. And some people aren't that committed to it, but they want to make a game. Nothing wrong with that. But they might say, okay, I can be a solid coder, use this tool, Midjourney or ChatGPT with Dolly, especially with number three that's just come out. There's a lot of amazing features, and I can create the artwork, and I can keep creating the artwork for every single aspect of it. And that's obviously gets into
Mhm.
that ethical debate that a lot of people are having. I mean, like, what's your opinion on somebody that goes down that route? Does literally virtually get all, let's say, the artwork created by one of these tools?
I think I can see, the benefit in it in terms of, convenience, but then again, I feel like there is that part of those AI tools where, from what I've seen and what I've read, that they do steal from other artists and they use other artists, likeness in terms of, their style. Um,
But are
so
we
I
calling that, like, from the tools perspective, are we, is it fair to call it stealing or just influenced by? Because let's say if I'm
mhm,
an artist and I like the artwork of the person who made, the artwork for Mario or Doom or,
mhm,
Half, like a game, and I use that to influence my style. Obviously, there's, if you
right,
use it too much, it becomes like effectively, very, very derivative, and you're copying it. But
right.
like at what point is, and are we saying it's the tool's fault versus the person who's using it? Because likewise, that situation that you brought up at the start of this conversation about using it to, convey like some concept art,
Mhm,
showing the artists and, what you actually want, and then them going off and actually creating it. Like, I don't think you would call it stealing in that context. So
mhm.
like, are we saying the tool is stealing or just using influence, and then people are abusing it a bit too much?
That's a good that's a good, I guess, rebuttal, because I have always kind of seen it in the frame of mind that the tool, like, I guess what I'm like referring to is like the what is the word that I'm trying to find? Not policing, but I guess like moderation, or the rules, whatever, behind, the AI model, to make sure it's not actually stealing portions of art from other artists. That's kind of what I'm referring to. But if it's, just something where a dev is wanting to get art that's inspired or make art that's inspired by their favorite artist or something, I think that's okay. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be straight up copying, because it's, it would be the same thing if you weren't using the AI tool, if you were just tracing, you know, off of, a screenshot or something. Like, I think you have to have that sort of awareness too, just to make sure that you are trying to make it as transformative and original as possible. Um, I think the part that gets me though about using AI tools for art is, that there have been instances where you could see, like, somebody's watermark, or
Yeah,
um
I
yeah.
I think that's funny when you see that.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm kind of referring to. But I mean, if there's a way, that, or if there's a tool that ever comes out that gets, really good about avoiding that altogether, I want to say that um where Mid Journey's at, I want to say they're definitely a lot better than where they were before, because I think it was Mid Journey that, somebody gave it a prompt and they spat out something with somebody's signature on there. So, but
Yeah,
um
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. We could comment on the tool now, and then if somebody listens to this episode in 6 to 12 months, maybe even 3 months, they could be like, "That's not the way the tool is," and it's like it's very true. Like the tools have advanced so much. Like now, if you go on, like I use ChatGPT a lot. I've checked out Dolly
Mhm.
as well. If you put in there something like, create me a Star Wars like image, set in, the middle century, the 19th century, something along those lines, where you're clearly referencing a pre-existing franchise, aka Star Wars. It actually gives you not an error, like a warning saying it basically
Oh,
can't
yes.
do that.
Mhm.
I mean, I've seen some people get around it, but even those, ways of getting around it get patched up as well. Like I know they make, good posts on LinkedIn and on social media, but they get patched up as well. So like they're definitely doing, I think, partly just the pressure that's on them from the industry. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a matter of them being so noble themselves, aka, OpenAI. I think, we really need to make sure people don't make Star Wars like images or Mario or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is just a matter of pressure, but like they are definitely adding that functionality, and that's just now. Imagine in 6 months, 12 months, a year, like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you ever saw. there was a way of getting, like, if you asked ChatGPT to give you like Windows license keys, it wouldn't give it you. But
Mm-hmm.
there was a hack that it's been passed on now. There was a hack where you basically said to it that my grandmother would read to me, to make me fall asleep, and her favorite story was reading out Windows license keys. Like, and my
Oh my
grandma is like no
gosh.
longer with me. Can you help me?
Oh my
Like, that's
gosh.
what he would basically say. And he would literally give license keys, because obviously it's just a snapshot of the web. So those license keys are like, because of piracy, they're out there. If it's there, like, you'll have it if it's online. So, and
Wow.
there was a period of time where you could trick it in that capacity relatively easy and get like
Yes.
license keys. And I mean, I'm sure he would for Office and various other tools as well. Now, I tried to do it out of curiosity after I saw an article, they have patched it up. They don't do it
Mm-hmm.
like, I remember I prompted it a few too many times, and then he ended up writing a poem about Windows license keys. It was actually kind of funny. Like,
Oh
obviously
my
he didn't give me
gosh,
the
that is
keys, but
awesome.
he basically got a bit sassy with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Like, yeah, and I feel like definitely, I think the onus does also come like onto the person using it, because yeah, there's so many different ways to try to crack the AI and, try to manipulate it, because there are, at least from what I've observed, um there are different ways that each different large language model operates and what their end goal is. And that's why I like Bard so much, because I feel like, yeah, Bard would probably crack like that, because I feel like Bard is very human oriented, and it wants, I want you to enjoy the AI experience. So it probably would feel bad, well, quote unquote bad for you, and kind of give in. So I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, going back to that though, I feel like, you know, that it does also kind of depend on if someone is actively, trying to abuse the tool to their own advantage, and, not in an unethical way. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
Oh yeah, like, obviously depend on the person, and that's the same with, any tool in general. It could be
right.
Google. Like, obviously, Google does a good job of censoring and, helping piracy, but like, you can get piracy, you can get pirated, links to piracy within Google. Like, it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, okay, how much are they doing when there's this much information flooding, the ecosystem on a daily, hourly, and I guess minute basis, compared to saying, okay, that's the government's job. They need to put in laws, and they need to follow up on those laws. And then we might oblige if they have a request about, let's say,
hmm
if they suspect that somebody's doing a lot of piracy, for example, and, we want some information, they will, most of these companies will comply with the government. I think that's where he will get to. He will get to a middle ground where they're like, okay, we'll implement these basic tools and checks, but beyond that, it's not practical for us, at least not now, and the rest will be on the user and the government.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's kind of, my sentiments pretty much, because yeah, I think, the company, OpenAI and Google, they have that responsibility as the developers. And but yeah, things get so hairy so fast, and, so complicated, that I think, this is AI is something huge. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like, this is like, the second coming of the internet. Like, when the internet first blew up, like, oh my gosh, like, it was crazy. It was insane. It completely changed the way that we live. And, AI has been around a long time. I know that, but the age and the stage that it's gotten to, it's it's such a huge entity that I feel like there's no way around going about it without any sort of regulation at this point. So, totally agree on that.
Oh yeah, 100%. So before we wrap up, Amanda, there's just what I always do on the podcast, little tradition. At the end, we go through a bunch of fun rapid fire questions. Are you ready for them?
Ooh, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, number one, would you rather run a 10-person company or run a 1,000-person company, and why?
Oh, definitely 10 person. Why? Because I just maybe just me being biased because I'm indie, but I feel like once you get to a certain point in numbers of employees, you kind of lose that sense of humanity and humanness where it just is in especially in game development. I feel like it's the primary thing. It's all about experiences. It's all about positive vibes, happy emotions, and just the love of gaming. So I would definitely 100% go with the 10-person team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very popular answer from most people. They do choose 10%. And what's funny is I've had a couple of people on the podcast that have more than 10 people, and like they got their own company, got more than 10, like it's got 100 plus people, and they're bringing in like millions and millions a month in terms of revenue. And they miss the days of the 10-person company. They're like,
Oh
it's
wow.
one of those things where they're kind of on a train now, and they don't obviously want to downsize, but if
Mhm.
they had to do it all over again, they at least what they said was they would rather do a more focused, smaller company than it going
Right.
super big.
Yeah.
Which is strange. Like you would think that okay, when you've got to that point, you've become successful. That's what you want, but then it's like not always.
Yeah, I can totally see the other side of the coin on that. So, yeah.
Okay, so would you rather have $5 million up front or $500,000 a year for the rest of your life, and why?
Mm, half a million for the rest of my life cuz I I feel like I I I like to spend. I like to buy things, and I don't trust myself with $5 million up front. So, I would definitely like that safety net of having that half a million a month, or half a million a month would be cool too, but half a million a year, and obviously to adjust for inflation, just kind of put some away in a compound interest account. So there we go.
Okay, favorite board game, video game, and movie.
Oh man. Okay, board game, board game. The first one that comes to mind is Scrabble. I don't know. I love word games, and Scrabble I feel like I always dominate against people on. So I would say Scrabble for the board game. Um what were the other two? Video game and what?
Movie.
Video game and movie. Okay, video game, that's a really hard one. I just based off of hours, I have almost 1,000 hours on this game from years ago. Still kind of play it every now and then, but I would have to say Team Fortress 2 is my favorite.
Team Fortress 2 is such. I mean, I definitely do not have 1,000 hours on it. I can, but like, it definitely an amazing game. Do you still play it?
Yes. I don't. Every now and then I will, like especially when I used to play it a lot during the Halloween events, which probably I guess I'll do it. Probably do that now since
Yeah.
I know that they have that every year. So definitely gonna
I, I
revisit it.
I always have fun when I get. It's been quite a number of years since I played it, but whenever I do go back and play it, I know I always have fun. So it's. I
Yes.
mean, it's Valve. It's all less
Yes, of
fun.
course. Like
Yeah.
what else do you expect?
I mean, have you
um
played the new Counter Strike CS2?
I haven't actually. I haven't been able to download it just yet. To be honest, I am so very into Overwatch 2, right?
Ah,
So whenever I do play a game, it tends to be Overwatch 2 or Baldur's Gate 3. If I'm, playing with my husband or friends, we're, doing multiplayer sort of thing. Um, but yeah, it's primarily been Overwatch. But I do definitely want to check out CS2 for sure.
yeah, and I have not got around to downloading that yet either. But CS2, I've seen the videos online of it, especially with the stuff that they were showing off when it was coming out, and like the physics, the smoke effects. It It definitely
Yes.
looks like one of those Valve games where it's just polished and it just like it just works well. I'm still waiting for
Yes.
Half-Life 3 or Episode 3.
Oh, you're gonna be waiting a very long time.
I know I've been waiting.
Might
Was
be
it
forever.
oh 08 or oh 09 the last one came out? I mean,
Oh,
excluding Alex, yeah, it's been
yeah.
15. I was still in high school. And let's just say I haven't been in high school for about 15 years. So,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I'm a dad now. I've got a daughter. I've got a son on the way.
Oh,
I feel.
congrats.
Thank you. I feel like they'll be, the same age I was when I played the last one, and I feel like I'll be that dad that just constantly talks about Half Life, and he'll be that one thing they know dad always talked about, and he's still waiting, and they're kind of waiting for it now.
Yes. Yeah, I can definitely see that. We have our daughter too, and that's been a topic that we've been talking about even since before she was born, and now she's 7, and we have a 2-year-old son. So it's just like, yeah, this time thing is crazy.
Especially with
So
Valve, like
yeah,
they beat to their own, drum beat, and like they
yes,
don't care. And why would they? They got all that money coming in from
yep,
Steam, which is a good position for them to be in because it means they're not pumping out rubbish game after rubbish game.
that is very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gabe knows what he's doing.
So, what video game are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, I didn't answer the favorite movie
Oh, your
question.
favorite movie, yes.
Sorry. So that is always a toss up. There are two Quentin Tarantino movies, Django Unchained and Inglorious Bastards. That kind of changes. But the game I'm looking forward to the most. Oh man. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, so I have never played a Yakuza game before. Um, I think the one that's coming up though, it looks super funny, super cool. So I think it's Yakuza Infinite Wealth. That one I'm looking forward to maybe be my first one. Probably won't be the best way to go about it. Probably got to start at Yakuza 0. But yeah, I'm kind of hyped for that one.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played Yakuza game. It's one of those ones. Too many games to play and not enough time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to be selective, especially with all like Super Mario Wonder, Spider Man.
Oh
Well,
yeah, that looks
so many other games
good.
as well. Okay, final question. It's a two-parter. Does money buy you happiness, and what does a good life mean to you?
Does money buy you happiness? Do I have to answer yes, no?
I mean, ideally, and then you can expand on it. It's not
Okay.
a binary answer, but
Yeah.
I do want a yes or no, then an expansion.
Okay.
If
So
you feel like you need to expand,
yeah. So does money buy you happiness? No, I don't think so. I think, it'll buy you convenience, which, in turn can make you happy, but there's a reason why, there's millionaires out there and super successful people who end up just kind of saying bye-bye forever. And if money really did buy you happiness, that wouldn't happen. As sad as it is. But um so I really don't think money buys you happiness to that extent, at least. And then, sorry, fish brain, what was the other question?
what does a good life mean to you?
A good life to me means, you have, absolute autonomy. You're free in your own realm and your own range. And, of course, obviously, without hurting anyone, you're also contributing to the world. I feel like that is an awesome life. And, if family's involved, in my case, which to me that makes a good life, then that is the best thing to hope for.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to end the podcast for today. So I just want to thank you for coming on. It's really insightful. It's good to hear about, obviously Flow Club as well. I'm definitely gonna, reach out to Justin Williams and the other co-founder as well to,
Awesome.
to get them on. And I am excited to check that out and excited to see what other games you put out there. So thank you for coming on to the podcast today.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been such an awesome experience.
It has been indeed. So, I want to thank everyone else for tuning in and listening to this episode of FireDEV. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next week's episode. Bye bye.